All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Torah Studies. It is great to have you all here tonight. All right, so our topic is Pesach Sheni. Passover 2, the Exodus continues. The reason why this is relevant tonight is not because it is Pesach Sheni, which we'll talk about in a moment. It is not that time of year, but it does, the narrative of Pesach Sheni comes up in this week's Torah portion. So let's explore what is Pesach Sheni, what do those words mean, what are the parameters of that observance, and we'll ask a few questions that can only be answered according to the mystical tradition. All of this and more coming up in the next 50 minutes or so. So let's begin. We begin with a discussion about the history of Pesach Sheni. Pesach Sheni, of course, Pesach is the Hebrew word for Passover. Sheni means second. So Pesach Sheni is really the second Passover. But what does that mean? So the Torah tells us a story, and it's in this week's Torah portion, Beha'alotecha. The Torah tells us about a bunch of Jews who had been impure. They had been impure when it was time to offer the Paschal lamb in observance of Passover, and so they requested a second chance. Now, just to clarify this because it's very important, we're not talking about year one, meaning the year of the Exodus. This is the 1 year anniversary of the Exodus. So they observed Passover. Part of the observance of Passover, the first time they observed Passover as a commemorative holiday, meaning 1 year later, that first time they were commanded to bring the Paschal lamb like they had brought in Egypt the night of the Exodus. So they bring the Paschal lamb, and they were told to eat it with matzah and mar, like Passover observance, as that goes. However, there were, as I mentioned a moment ago, a group of Jews that were impure. Now, why were they impure? And what does impurity mean? So just to clarify quickly, impure is not a physical condition. It is a spiritual condition. The impurity was due to the fact, and there's actually a debate amongst the commentators as to what exactly was the cause of their tumah, their impurity. The narrative that I like, for what it's worth, is that these were the individuals that were carrying the remains of Joseph. So throughout the 40 years of wandering, they carried Joseph's coffin with his remains inside. Why did they do that? Because before Joseph passed away in Egypt, he told his family, one thing, don't leave me here in Egypt. Take my remains out when you leave. And so they did. They took Joseph's remains and they carried it throughout the 40 years until they got to Israel. And then they interred him in the Holy Land of Israel, where he is to this very day. Fun fact, I don't know if it's a fun fact, but where is he buried? Which city? Joseph's tomb?
Nablus? No.
Shechem. Which is? Yeah.
Nablus.
Oh, Nablus.
That's right.
That is correct. Yeah. Shechem. All right. So, when you come in contact with human remains, then you become spiritually impure. And there's a whole purification process and rite that's involved in getting to become spiritually pure. But the bottom line is these people were doing a mitzvah. They were carrying the coffin of Joseph. That's a big mitzvah. And they come to Moshe and they say, it's not fair. Here we are doing a mitzvah, but because of that we're impure. And because we're spiritually impure, ritually impure, therefore we're not allowed to bring the Paschal lamb. So we're missing out on Passover? That's not right. That's not fair. And so that was the complaint. Let's read this inside, Mom, if you don't mind. To get us kicked off, 1 second, let me first make sure that I'm pulled up on my screen. Okay, here we go. Please take away text 1a.
Moses spoke to the children of Israel, instructing them to make the Passover sacrifice. Continue?
Yeah, just read.
So they made the Passover sacrifice in the first month, on the afternoon of the 14th day of the month, in the Sinai desert, according to all that God had commanded Moses, so did the children of Israel do. There were men who were ritually unclean because of contact with a dead person, and therefore could not make the Passover sacrifice on that day. So they approached Moshe and Aaron on that day. Those men said to him, we are ritually unclean because of contact with a dead person. But why should we be excluded so as not to bring the offering of God in its appointed time with all the children of Israel? Moses said to them, wait, and I will hear what the Lord instructs concerning you.
All right, so they complained, or they said, why are we missing out? And indeed, Moses tells the people, all right, hold on. He picks up the red phone, kidding, right? And he reaches out to God. Text 1b, this is God's response. Please continue, Mom.
God spoke to Moses, saying, speak to the children of Israel, saying, any person who becomes unclean from contact with the dead, or is on a distant journey, whether among you or in future generations, they shall make a Passover sacrifice for God.
Please. Yeah, right there.
In the second month, on the 14th day, in the afternoon, they shall make it. They shall eat it with unleavened cakes and bitter herbs. They shall not leave anything from it until the next morning, and they shall not break any of its bones. They shall make it in accordance with all the statutes connected with the Passover sacrifice.
All right, thank you. So basically, God tells Moses to tell the people that were ritually impure, don't worry, you have a second chance. And again, verse 10 says, any person who becomes unclean, etc., whether now or in future generations, shall make a Passover sacrifice, meaning there's a second chance. And when is it? In the second month on the 14th day. That's exactly 1 month after Passover. Now, you might be wondering, Passover is the 15th day of the month, not the 14th day. However, what you need to know, and what's germane to this conversation, is that although Passover is celebrated on the 15th, it's really the night of the 15th, which is the night after the 14th day, because the Jewish day starts at night. Confusing, right? So you have the 14th day followed by and that night is Passover. But when do you bring the Paschal offering? You actually offer it while it's still day, on day 14. So 1 month later, on the 14th day of the second month, the month of Iyar, that is when you have the second opportunity to bring the Paschal lamb. That is called Pesach Sheni, second Passover, for anyone who is ritually impure. Now, what are the laws?
Or traveling.
As it stipulates. What are the rules and parameters of this second Passover opportunity, the second Paschal lamb opportunity? We continue inside the text. Let us continue with text 2a. Ramon, please read text 2a. This is Rashi in his commentary.
On the second Passover, one may keep both leavened bread and unleavened food in the home, and there is no festival. The consumption of leaven is not forbidden except while one eats it for sacrifice.
All right, so Rashi says, interestingly enough, and he gets it obviously from the Talmud and our tradition of Jewish law, he says basically one of the differences between Passover 1, meaning Passover, and Passover 2, the second chance if you were unable to bring it the first time with your Paschal lamb, is that on the second Passover, it's not actually Passover. It's the second time, it's an opportunity to bring the Paschal lamb, but it's not actually Passover. Therefore, you can actually have chametz, bread, in your home. You can have sourdough and Paschal lamb simultaneously. Well, it says don't eat it together, fine. But you can have it.
Not as a sandwich.
Not as a sandwich. No, not as a sandwich. But you can have it in the house. You're not cleaning your house. So that's an important distinction. Let's continue. And Maimonides' Rambam clearly dictates and spells out the differences between the Passover lamb, the Paschal offering that you would bring the first round versus the makeup date 1 month later. Roman, please continue with this one as well. Text 2b.
What are the differences between the first Paschal sacrifice and the second Paschal sacrifice? At the time of the first, chametz is forbidden to be seen or possessed in one's domain. It may not be slaughtered while one is in possession of chametz. Its meat may not be removed from the company in which it was designated to be eaten. Hallel must be recited when it is eaten. A festive offering is brought with it. It may be brought in a state of impurity if the majority of the people are impure because of contact with a human corpse, as we explained. With regard to the second Paschal sacrifice, by contrast, both chametz and matzah may be possessed by the person at home. Hallel is not recited while eating it. It may be taken out of the company in which it was designated to be eaten. A festive offering is not brought with it, and it may not be brought in a state of impurity. Both are alike in that offering them supersedes the Sabbath prohibitions. Hallel is recited when they are offered. They are eaten roasted in one house together with masa and bitter herbs. In neither instance may their meat be left over until the next morning, nor may their bones be broken.
Thank you. That is such an informative reading. There's so many details here that are very, very important. What are the core differences between bringing the Paschal sacrifice the first time, meaning on its original appointed date, versus bringing it on the makeup date 1 month later? And the answer is there's a bunch of differences. Mainly, there's the chametz issue. First Passover 1, you cannot have chametz. Passover 2, a month later, you could. There's no halal when you eat it. You can take it out of the house. You can, you bring, all right, whatever. We read this already. I don't want to go into all the details, but we see that there's distinctions, yeah.
According to this, though, you can be impure the first time,
Oh,
but not the second time.
Excellent.
So
Let's
doesn't that sort of contradict the whole purpose?
the
of
whole
the
purpose.
second?
Look carefully at the end of the first paragraph
The
in this
majority of
text.
people have to
Yes,
answer.
look at this. So yeah, very important. But thank you for mentioning that, because it's important that we pause on this for a moment. If you look at the last line of that first paragraph of Rambam, he says it may be brought in a state of impurity if the majority of the people are impure because of the contact with the human corpse, as we explained. That's obviously a reference to elsewhere, but it's very, very important. Let's just go big. If the entire community somehow fell in a state of impurity, God forbid, there's a pandemic, who knows what, everyone's impure, then what do? You cancel? No, then you bring the Paschal lamb in a state of impurity. It's only if the majority is pure and a few people are impure that they don't bring it and bring it a month later. Does that make sense? Yes? A state of impurity, if the rov tzibur, if the majority of the congregation is impure, then you go forward. Business as usual. It's only if a minority is impure, then they don't bring the Paschal lamb. They can bring it a month later. Which is what happened in the wilderness, in the desert, year 2, the first year after the Exodus. Okay, but that's going to be an important point in a moment when I ask a question. So we see here, again, some contrasts. There's some similarities also, some contrasts. All right, so that's about Pesach Sheni. Now, today, as we all know, there is no temple. And because there's no temple, hey, Jay, good to see you. Hey, guys. Hey, Susan. So because there's no temple, so we don't bring we don't offer the Paschal lamb. It's not a thing. Passover we observe by eating matzah, eating mar. We have the Seder plate. We read the Haggadah. We share some stories, and I don't know, whatever your tradition is at home, right? That's how we observe it. We don't actually offer the Pesach, the Paschal lamb, which would seem to then it would make sense that Pesach Sheni would not be a thing either. Meaning, you don't need a Pesach, you don't need a second chance to bring the Paschal offering if you can't bring it the first time around because there's no holy temple. We don't have a holy temple. We can't bring it the first round. We can't bring it the second round. So you would think the Passover, we have other forms of commemoration. But Pesach Sheni, a holiday to commemorate the fact that there was a second chance for those that were ritually impure for the first time around, there's no offering. And yet it is observed to this day. So let's read this one. This is going to be text number 3, and let's see how the sages talk about the observance that we do on Pesach Sheni, on the what's called here the little Passover. Yava, are you up to reading?
I can read it.
Text 3.
The accepted custom is not to recite the Tachanun prayer on the 14th of Iyar, as it is a little Passover.
There you go. So it says in the code in Jewish law that you don't recite Tachanun. Now Tachanun is recited typically on days that are regular days, but if it's a special day, then you don't recite Tachanun prayer. And it says, indeed, on this day you don't recite the Tachanun prayer because it's like a little Passover, a mini Passover. All right, so that is one idea. Take a look at text 4a. You know what? If you don't mind reading text 4a as well.
People who are
Scrupulous
are accustomed to eating matzah on the 14th of Iyar.
All right, so and here you would also observe it by not only not saying tachanun, but also eating matzah. There's a beautiful custom. We're going to skip text 4b because it's not really, it's just telling the story about Hasidic. The Hasidic custom was always to eat matzah on Pesach Sheni, and it's on that second Passover, as it were. to this day, and indeed we do it, and many have the custom to eat matzah on Pesach Sheni.
Would you have a barbecue that day also?
It would be interesting to have a barbecue. That would be an interesting.
It was barbecue meat back then, right?
It was. It's interesting that I've never heard of an observance of having a barbecue, but it might be a fun way to celebrate. Right. Typically, people eat matzah on that day, and they don't say tachron, and it's like a very minor holiday. To which we need to ask a few questions. Question number one is regarding the timing. The timing of Pesach Sheni, the second chance, is 30 days after the original, 1 month later. Now, when it came to every holiday, every Jewish holiday, there was always the possibility that somebody might be impure and not be able to bring the special offering associated with that holiday. Now, I should probably take a half a step back and explain that although Passover is unique because it has the Paschal lamb, the Passover lamb, every holiday also had a special carbon known as the carbon chagiga. Now that was brought one offering on behalf of the entire people, but anyone that made a pilgrimage, anyone that showed up to the temple in Jerusalem on the holiday would bring what's called a carbon re'iyah. Carbon re'iyah means an offering that you bring for being seen. Re'iyah means to see, because you saw and you were seen in Jerusalem in the temple on the holiday, so the individual would bring an offering. But if you didn't have a chance to bring it on day one of the holiday, because there's a lot of people that would visit, you had like 7 days to bring it. There were 6 days or 7 days in which you could bring, called tashlumin, makeup days, where you could bring the offering if you didn't bring it on day one. The question becomes, on Passover, why don't we do it like a few days after the holiday? Why do we kick it out a full month? That's question one. Okay, that's question one. Question number two is why this idea that you can have we said that you can have chametz, leavened bread, with your Paschal lamb. If it's really a second Passover opportunity, then you would think it would make sense to be as similar like the original, which means if you're having the Paschal lamb, maybe you shouldn't be having chametz. It's like all the commentators are like, and you know what, you can have chametz in your house. I understand that that's the law, but my question is why? Why is it? It seems a little strange. Like let's lean into Passover.
Because you don't want to make the women clean the house again.
That is true. That is true. That I can definitely understand that, but it's still worthy to ask the question, which is, what's the deal? What is the deal with the chametz in the house? Why are we leaning into it so strongly? Everyone's saying it. Oh, you got chametz in the house. It seems a little weird. The third question that I want to ask, has to do with the fact that today it is observed by the masses. Everyone observes Pesach Sheni. Everyone, observes it as a minor holiday, which means that we don't say tachron, we eat matzah, and it's ironic because back in the days of the temple, not everyone observed Pesach Sheni. Who observed Pesach Sheni?
Only those in this.
Only those. And as we read before, only if they were the minority. So how is it that a minority, by definition, if there was a majority that were impure, then you brought it? That was the twist. That was the plot twist before. If the majority of the people were impure, then they brought a Pesach Rishon. They just brought they brought the Paschal lamb on Passover. It's only if there's a minority of people. It's only if it's the minority that is impure that you would then not bring it the first round and bring it the second round. If that's the case, how is it that we've standardized Pesach Sheni as a celebratory day for everyone, when by definition it's only a minority observance? Does that make sense? That's probably the strongest
Because
question.
we're really all impure nowadays.
Yep, but if we're really all impure, then we don't need a second Passover. Meaning we would just lean into first Passover. I'm saying that's that point, that the piece that you pointed out before is the base of this third question. I will say this: the first two are kind of like observational questions. The third question is a really strong question. Again, just to recap very quickly, then we're going to lean into some answers. Question number one is, why is the second opportunity to bring the Paschal lamb kicked out a full 30 days and not maybe like a few days or maybe a week? Why is it kicked out so far? Like a month later? There's always second chances to bring offerings, but it's never a month later. What's up with that? Question 1. Question 2, why the matzah? Sorry, why the chametz? Why the leavened with the Paschal lamb? Why not kind of lean a little bit more into the Passover spirit and like not have your sourdough around? Third question, which is the strongest question, how does an option that is by definition only if there's a minority of people that need it, how does that become kind of so mainstream that everybody knows about it and everybody observes it, even though there's not much to observe, but everyone kind of quasi-observes it as a special day on the calendar, even though, meaning the majority, the entire people, even though by definition it's only a minority opportunity. Okay, that's question 3.
Because it expands, just like the chametz.
Oh, it rose. Very good. All right, good. So these are the 3 questions. When the Rebbe spoke about this topic, he asked these 3 questions, the same questions that I asked. These are not my questions. These are the Rebbe's questions. And as he asked them, or after he asked them, he said the following. He said there are certain questions you can answer in the halachic literature, meaning it's a kind of a legal question, and you can answer it within the legal framework. A Talmudic question, you can answer it Talmudically, etc. But there are certain questions in the revealed parts of Torah, meaning in the legal observance of Torah, that actually don't have an answer within that space of Torah. There's like, you hit a dead end. And you can only understand it when you understand the meaning of the mitzvah on a mystical, spiritual level. And the Rebbe said this is one of these examples. Pesach Sheni, you can only understand when you go a little bit mystical. So let's go mystical. What is Pesach Sheni? So to understand this, what we need to do is first explain the general concept of what an offering, a sacrifice, a karban is. The word karban translates as offering or sacrifice. But the word karban comes from the Hebrew word karov, which means close. A karban, by definition, is an opportunity for a person to draw close to God. And yes, back in the day, in temple times, when they brought offerings, they literally brought animal sacrifices. But as the mystics explain, what that means on a personal, spiritual, timeless level is that in order to draw close, karban, to draw close to God, what's required is to bring your inner animal to God, to offer your inner animal to God. Now, what does that mean? To offer your inner animal to God? Was this like a throwaway line? No. It means as follows. Every one of us has an animal soul. An animal soul, just by way of clarification, is not synonymous with evil. But what it is very mundane. Your animal soul, my animal soul, is very earthly, very mundane. Ruach habehema yoredes el haaretz. The spirit of the animal descends to the earth, says King Solomon. The animal spirit within humans is what pulls us down into earthliness, pulls us down into temptation, into all sorts of vices that can trap us and ensnare us and could lead to evil. But at the core, the animal tendency is gashmiyut, is materialism and physicality. That's at the core. So what does it mean to offer an animal sacrifice on a personal level? It means to take your inner animal and sublimate it a little bit. Sacrifice it a little bit. I'm excited about, looking at the sushi now. I'm excited about, no, we got to keep that. We got to keep that pure. Sushi is a holy experience tonight. You get excited about something a little too materialistic, take it easy. Take it easy. Sacrifice the animal. The inner animal, not someone else's animal, not nothing outside yourself, but inside. There's 2 steps to this journey. I'm going to pause here for a moment and let's leave the inner animal sacrifice for a moment, and let me focus on, you will see soon, the same concept, but let me use different words. In last week's Torah portion, it was discussed the scenario of a Nazir, the Nazirite. Who's the Nazir? Nazir is someone who takes a vow of abstention. No haircuts, no wine, and no ritual impurity. Who is the most famous Nazir in history? Samson. Exactly. He didn't drink wine, he didn't cut his hair, and he was not to come in contact with ritual, to become ritually defiled. Famously, what happens to his hair?
Delilah cut it off.
Delilah cuts it off, and he loses his strength, and that was the end, or the beginning of the end, for Samson. So there's this mitzvah of a nazir, and the Torah says that you can take a vow of nazirut, the vow of becoming a nazir, and that's basically a vow of abstention. Everyone else is enjoying cocktails at the bar, and you, no, maybe, I don't know if cocktails would be considered wine or a great product. It's a bad example. Everyone else is drinking wine, and you're not drinking wine. Everyone else is getting a haircut. Steve, Samson was done by Phyllis Stein. Oh my gosh, cannot take you anywhere. All right. So, yeah. So you remember Steve? Yeah. All right. So, what was I up to? What were we saying? Samson. So the Torah says that if you take this, so everyone else is drinking wine, you can't drink wine. You're not drinking. Everyone else is getting haircuts, and you're all disheveled, right? Make sure that that's not the case. Everyone else is right. You're kind of like, you're not ordinary, a little bit different, a little separate. The Torah says that upon the completion of the term of Nazirut, when that term, you take it to 6 months, a year, 10 years. Samson had a lifetime pledge. But if there's a term on it, and that term is finished, what happens? You bring an offering. And what type of offering is it? Says the Torah, last week's Torah portion. What type of offering is it? A sin offering.
Which makes no sense.
Which makes no sense. What kind of sin? You bring a sin offering if you committed a sin. We're not saying if you broke your vow, you bring a sin offering. It's if you completed your vow, you bring a sin offering. Why would you bring a sin offering if you completed your vow? You know what the answer is? The answer is...
You're apart from the world.
Yeah, because God didn't tell you to abstain from things. The Talmud says, person comes to heaven, they're going to be taken to task for everything that they saw and didn't eat. I don't know if that's a Talmud or a Jewish mother trying to get everyone to eat, right? Right? It could be one or the other. Right? It's like, remember Bubby?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Fill the plates. Yeah, my mother's mother. So, like, what does it mean? It means God has given you resources, and the goal is to utilize it for power. Why are you saying no? Why are you abstaining? So it's a sin. So you completed the term, but you shouldn't have done it in the first place. At the same time, it says in Pirkei Avot, here's the tension. Kachi darka shel Torah, this is the way of Torah. Pas b'melech tochel, eat bread with salt. V'mayim b'mesura tishta, and drink a little bit of water. V'al haaretz tishan, and sleep on the floor. Live a materialistically austere, live a minimalistic life. So which one is it? Am I supposed to lean in or lean out? Am I supposed to be a maximalist or a minimalist? Which one? Of course, the answer to anytime you have this type of question, what's the answer? Yes, right? You guys know this by now, right? Are we supposed to lean in or lean out? The answer is yes, it depends. Here's what it depends on. If you're up to the task of taking that thing on and elevating it, utilizing it for a higher purpose, engage. You have no right to abstain from it. But if you feel like by engaging in it, it's going to sink you, it's going to take you down, then step back from it. It's like anything in life. If you can handle this challenge, go for it. If you don't think you can handle the challenge, you might step away from it. In the language of Jewish mystical thought, these two modalities of living, and by the way, these are not two different people. Same person, two different vices. One, it's not a challenge to you. One, it's a big challenge to you. You got to practice, we all have to practice these two modalities. Iskafia and ishapcha. What does that mean? Iskafia is where you reject and say no. Disengage. Ishapcha means you engage and you elevate and transform it for the good. So, Talmud famously says, an am ha'aretz, a person of the land, should not eat meat. What does that mean? It means that if a person is not spiritually sensitive enough to be able to transform that food into something higher, better not to deal with it in the first place. The Talmud says that. Amma Aretz should not eat meat. And then, at the same time, if someone feels like they could, then great, then they can try. The point is, I think everybody knows within themselves what are challenges that you haven't yet mastered, in which case it's probably better to walk away from and not engage in, versus the things that you feel like you can handle, in which case, go for it. Yes? Make sense? I hope this is not sounding too, it's meant to be very practical. If it's sounding esoteric, then I'm not doing a good job presenting. This should be very, foundational, right? An area of engagement in life where you feel like you got it, you can handle it, you can engage in it and show up in a healthy way, go for it. You got to lean into it and go for it and transform it and elevate it, utilize it for its higher purpose, etc. But an area in which you feel like it's risky, if you go into it, you might not get out, okay? Meaning, like you're going to sink into the temptation, or you're going to, take a misstep, whatever that. I'm leaving it vague because whatever area it is, it could be open to your own application. But if that's the case, then iskafia, then just say no. In the language of Jewish law, we might say that it's similar to the duality of sur meira and aseh tov. Again, Hebrew terms. Sur meira, this comes from King David. He writes sur meira, aseh tov, turn away from evil and do good. These are two modalities. One is abstain from negativity. The other one is do something positive. And these two modalities follow us throughout life. In fact, you want to think about the 613 mitzvot, you have two categories, right? Within the 630, you have 365 don'ts, meaning stay away, abstain from that. Don't try to go into it and transform it. Don't try to say, you know what, I'm going to do that, but it'll be for a higher purpose. No. Sumerat, just walk away. If you see it, just walk away from it. That's one category. Second category is aseh tov. Utilize it, engage with it, use it for a mitzvah. Yes? So, if it's not kosher, walk away. If it is kosher, engage with it. Surmira aseh tov. Which is step one and which is step two? What do you think? In the journey of personal growth, which is step one and which is step two? Now you might say they're simultaneous. Certain things I can engage, certain things I might not. But in the journey, if the ultimate goal is transformation, but I'm struggling with it right now, what will be the order of my steps? Step one, I know I asked it before, like as if I wanted you to answer, but I think I'm just going to lean into it. Step one is let me push it away. Step two is when I get strong enough, I'm going to jump into it and I'll see if I can engage in a healthy way in this area.
In Tanya, we're dealing with making everything for the purpose of God. I'm not quite sure I get that. Like when you say make it for a higher purpose, like if you're eating.
Yeah, I mean the easiest example that's brought in Kabbalah and Chassidus is eating.
Yeah.
It's like it's fairly, straightforward to explain. It's so like if I'm eating,
just enjoy it.
Well, I mean you can. No, you can, but you're not elevating in the process.
Right.
An animal also eats because it's hungry.
Right.
So that's eating from the animal. So that's not elevating. That's not sacrificing the animal up to God.
So what is elevating?
Elevating would mean that before I eat or drink something, I take a moment or a fraction of a moment, say a bracha, say a blessing, thanking God for the food or drink.
Okay.
But then I pause and think about how either before or while I'm eating or drinking, how the benefit and the utility of this thing that I'm eating or drinking is going to be to give me energy in order for me to do the next positive mitzvah, the next big thing, the next good thing. So it's there to fuel, meaning it's not there as a disconnected, eating experience. It's actually part of a spiritual continuum. It's almost like filling up my car with gas, or I guess if you have an electric car, plugging it in, right? It's like the reason why I'm filling it up is not for the sake of just filling it up or for the pleasure of the fill. That's not a thing. It's rather it's very utilitarian in order to keep it going to the next thing, which makes the food that I eat part of the mitzvah experience. right? That's the key to it. How does that cookie or how does that piece of sushi, how does it become, how is it elevated to a higher state? It's elevated when I do a mitzvah, when I serve God. And I'm serving God utilizing the energy, literally like the calories or whatever, the energy from that food, it now becomes part of that higher thing.
But if there's something that you don't think you can fully engage in,
Yeah.
so you're supposed to push away from it, where's the growth then? Because you continue to use kashrus.
Yeah.
I just don't think I can give up the Big Macs.
Right.
So do I just keep eating them, or do
No,
I try to push myself to
Good.
say, okay, I'm gonna?
So the first step, the iskafia step.
there's
No, it's a good
a-
question. The first step is what we might call white knuckling, which is where you just are abstaining from it, even though it's really hard and you're not yet on board. Maybe it's easier to give a more, let's say, emotional example. Let's say a person finds themselves, they get angry or upset about a certain thing, something is like a trigger for them. Okay. Oh, and then when they're in that state of anger, they might lash out at somebody that they love and then regret it later. Okay, so step one, and I'm not trying to make this sound easier than it is. Obviously, it would be very difficult. But step one would be to just in whatever way to just stop, to walk out of the room if that were to happen, right? To just like count to 1,000 before saying anything. Just like sitting on your hands. Putting whatever, starting to eat something so you're not saying anything. Like the step one would be just don't do it. Don't do the not nice, don't do the nasty thing, or say the nasty thing, whatever. Step two would be to work on yourself internally, and this is maybe a lifetime's work, to kind of, reformat ourselves from the inside to become a more patient person, to become a more compassionate individual, to become a more understanding human being. That is going to be a larger effort. That would be ishapcha. Iskafia would mean I'm just gonna like grin and bear it and whatever and not say anything. That's iskafia, which is step one. It's already an upgrade because the status quo might be that I'm just saying something or doing something nasty. Now I'm not, so that's positive. But I haven't really transformed myself. I'm just like holding on. Second step is this hapcha, where I'm now working on that transformation. And that's why I said it's typically step one, step two. So step one might be, I'm just not going to eat it. Step two might be, I appreciate the fact why I'm not eating it. And therefore it's easier now for me to not eat it. I'm not that tempted in it anymore. Meaning I'm okay with not eating it. Maybe initially I'm like, I really want it, but I'm not going to eat it. But now I appreciate it. And now I've kind of worked on myself to the point where it's a little bit easier. You know what's interesting? The Rabbi gives a very fascinating example.
Rabbi Aaron,
Yes. Hey, Jay.
we've studied Kabbalah extensively. Would you consider that you can put them in the categories of Chesed and Gevurah? That
Interesting.
concept?
Interesting. Gevurah would be iskafia, holding back, like the creating the boundaries. And Chesed would be more of the integration. Yeah, I would say that. Yeah, I would say those energy modalities work. Yeah. Gevurah would be like the rejection, pushing it away. And Chesed would be the inclusion where it's
Studied that.
yeah, it's very good. Yeah. Yeah, it all works together. Although usually Chesed is before Gevurah. In this case, the Gevurah will be before the Chesed, but I think it still works. I want to highlight here, because we're going to have to skip around a little bit with the text. I'm not crazy about the order that it's in, but I want to reference a letter from the Rebbe about this duality. It's going to be, just fast forward to text 10. This is a letter. It's got to be from the 1950s. Okay, here we go. I'm going to read it quickly. There are two levels in the refinement of the midot, emotional attributes. You guys see it? Mm-hmm. Okay. The first is atkafia, where the emotions obey the dictates of the intellect and refraining from unwanted behavior. The second is hapcha, to completely transform the midot. Midot means personal character traits. To illustrate, here we go. This is the main part of it. To illustrate, imagine a person has a competitor in his or her line of business in the same district. When he or she allows themselves to be controlled by their animal soul, animosity is aroused in them toward their competitor. The intellect of the godly soul then comes and says, certainly you are a believer that God is the master of the universe. Therefore, if God has ordained for you to earn a livelihood, how can your competitor take it from you contrary to God's will? If, however, it was decided on high you would earn less income, do you think that the competitor is the only means by which God can accomplish this? Therefore, your competitor is taking nothing from you. If so, why should you resent him or her? Let's pause here for a moment. By the way, this is already a huge internal dialogue. Imagine the example that he's giving is somebody opens up a competing business and now is taking away business. And every cell of your body is upset. You hate this person. They're destroying your business. So Rebbe says, hold on one second. The godly soul calms down the animal soul, says, shh, take it easy. One second. Do you believe in God? Yes. Is God in control? Yes. If God wants you to have the money, are you going to get the money? Yes. If God doesn't want you to have the money, are you not going to have it? Yes. All right, take it easy. God's in control. This meditation, by the way, is so powerful. Let's continue. After many internal debates, the person begins to feel that this hatred no longer impacts their behavior, then their speech, and finally even their thoughts. However, the person is still does not reach the level of his hapcha transformation. This is still white-knuckling it, meaning I'm not upset, but I'm not happy either. The godly soul continues and says, you must love your fellow as yourself. After all, you are a specialist in their line of business, and since their success has no effect on yours, because God's in control, help them with some good advice, with a loan, etc., until ultimately the hatred is transformed to love. Can you imagine? Someone who then helps the competitor? That's a level of transformation. This latter part is what Chassidus considers truly working on yourself, even if you can justifiably get away with only taking the first step. You can just do the first step where you're no longer you no longer want to punch the guy. That's step one. I'm just going to hold myself back, breathe deeply. God's in control. I don't wish that this person gets hit by a bus. That's level one. Level two is, I'm going to help you. Not sabotage. I didn't say that. Help you, genuinely help you. That is level two, and that is true internal transformation. Step one, step two. Let's think about this for a moment. When Passover happened, was it step one or step two vis-a-vis negativity? Think about it. Lord and Taylor. Passover happened. What do you guys think? Was that level one, transformation? Sorry. Was that transformation level two, or was that just abstaining from negative, level one?
Abstaining from negative.
Why was it abstaining from negative? Pharaoh represents, Egypt represents evil negativity. There's also the internal Pharaoh, the internal Egypt. And what is step one? You run away. You say, no, I can't hear you. I don't want to listen to you. I'm not going to follow you. I'm not going to stay stuck. I'm not going to stay enslaved to you. I'm not. You run away from the negativity. That is step number one. That's why you can't have any chametz. You can't have any 11 items. You can't have any ego. It's about running away. You don't want to get caught up in yourself in the internal. Remember, Pharaoh exists outside, but it also exists inside. Just like the animal sacrifice exists not only outside, but also exists inside. And that's the primary conversation we're having today. So Passover 1 is iskafia. Step 1 is Passover 1, where you just say no. Passover 2 is the second step, where you now can integrate, where you now can transform and integrate the challenges that you've had. Now when you no longer not only not hate the business competitor, but it's where you have transformed your hate into love, and now you're going to help the competitor, even though by all accounts that's a fool's errand. It makes no sense. Why would you help your competitor? But you're going to help them, as the Rebbe says, because of Ahavas Yisrael, because of love for a fellow. You're going to help them because you realize that God's in control, and I'm not going to let my emotions get the better of me. I'm in control to the point that I've transformed the hatred to love. And that's step 2. Step 1 is Passover 1. Step 2 is Passover 2. That's why by the second Passover, you can already have chametz. You can have your ego because you're working on transforming it. Doesn't mean you have negativity, but it means you have yourself. In level 1, you ran away from yourself. It's like, I don't like that, I'm going to run away from it. In level 2, you've transformed it from hate to love. Therefore, you can take your whole being. You don't have to run away from yourself. You can integrate your whole self with that experience. My friends, this is why no chametz the first Passover, yes chametz the second Passover. This is why it's a full month later. I asked, first question is, why is it a month later? Why not a few days later? This is the Torah's way of telling us it's going to take time. Don't think it's going to happen overnight. Don't think that you're going to become a tzaddik. You're going to you're going to transform your hate to love overnight. It doesn't happen quite like that. It takes time. It takes at least a month. It takes a lifetime. But the Torah's way of signifying that it's going to take time is by saying, your second Passover is going to be a month later. And now we also have an answer to our third question. Why is it? Why is it that it's for everybody? Because the spiritual meaning of Pesach Sheni is for everybody. It's not just if you were impure the first time around. Everybody's running away from something. Everyone's running away from some sort of vice, temptation, negativity. And everybody has an opportunity to not only run away from it, but to, in due time, work on transforming that as an ally to holiness, to turn the foe into a friend. That's the meaning of Pesach Sheni. And so in the final analysis, Pesach Sheni is more than an opportunity for those that missed it the first time around to make up for it the second time around. It's actually an opportunity for those that did it the first time around to do it again a second time, but a little bit differently. The first time you had to run away from Pharaoh. You had to run away from your ego. You had to run away from your chametz. You had to hide it. You had to clear it out. You had to if I see it, I'm going to run after it. The second time around, you can see the chametz. It can be there in the house, and you're okay with it. You're okay with it. You've conquered it. Look, I've been avoiding any specific, other than the Rebbe's example, I've been avoiding any specific application. I always, struggle with this. Is it better to give an application and then almost to narrow it down, or is it better to kind of leave it open? And I prefer personally to leave it open. Let you use your own imagination, your own application. But I think it's so important. We all know within our own selves that there are things that trip us up. And sometimes the best way to deal with that is make sure that we are not around it. Let's say there's a person. Wow, whenever I'm around that person, trouble happens. So you know what? I'm just not going to be with that person. I'm just not going to hang around them because it's too complicated, right? It's too triggering. A situation, a place, a person, a physical thing. It's just too toxic. It's too challenging. It's too whatever. I just got to stay away. I just got to cut ties with this, and that's it. That's level 1. That's Passover 1. That's leaving Egypt. That's running away. Ki barach ha'am. It's running away from Pharaoh. It's like Pharaoh's there, and it's scary, and you're afraid, and it's been no good for a long time. You say, you know what? I am out of here. See you later. Not coming back. 30 days later, the Torah says, you can do better. You can do better. It's not a judgment, by the way. Not that it was worse, but there's another option. And the other opportunity is with time and with growth, and it's usually not 30 days later. It's usually a lifetime's work. Being able to get yourself to a place where you can have a conversation with that person. And you can smile. And you can be okay. You can be okay. And you can hear them for who they are and where they are, and you don't have to get triggered. Or where you can engage in that thing, in that activity, in that place, and it's okay. Where you can see your competitor and not only not be filled with anger, but maybe even be filled with love, as the Rebbe's example. My friends, my blessing for all of us is that we should all integrate and internalize a little Pesach Sheni energy. Pesach Rishon, the first Pesach we know. Get rid of all the negative, no triggers. What do they call it? Safe spaces, right? Very safe spaces. Because we don't want to get triggered. Very safe spaces. Clear out any triggering things. That's important. Everyone knows Passover. That's Passover. That's Pesach Rishon, first Passover. Pesach Sheni is also very important. It's level 2. Level 2 where you can stare that in the eye and say, I'm not afraid. I'm not scared. I can see you. I can work with you. I can elevate you. I can transform you. I'm not afraid. That's a lifetime's work. May God give us the strength, the wisdom, the courage, the desire to take on our challenges in due time, at least 30 days later, and in doing so, indeed, elevate our challenges into opportunities, and in doing so, elevate our world into a home for God, and bring with it the ultimate light, the light of Mashiach. Speed in our days, and let us say, Amen.
Amen.
Thank you very much for joining.
So it sounds to me like the ultimate.
Thank you.
It sounds to me like the ultimate is for Pesach Rishon to have bread in the house and ignore it.
Well, in some ways we do have bread in the house, we just sold it.
We sold it, right? That's kind of like that. It's in your closet. You're just like, I don't know what you're talking
It's
about.
just not yours
It's not
anymore.
yours. But yeah, to that point, it's kind of like that. We're like, it's, you're like, okay, let me avoid.
So I'll tell my wife not to.
Don't quote me on that. You might be on your own on that. Very good, very good. Okay, questions, comments before we close out? Thank you very much. All right, great to see you all. Mom, great to have you here.
Say hi to Mom for me.
Mom is right here. There you go.
Hi.
Good seeing you. Welcome
Yeah,
to
no cat, just Mom. That's it. All right, good to see everybody. Dr. Maxey, Kate, Richard, Steve, Jay, Ellie, Sandrine, Jessica, Catherine, Faye. Good to see you all. And of course, our in-person crew. Thank you guys. You guys were awesome. Hope you enjoyed it. And everyone's invited to stay for the presentation. All right. Very good. Okay, we'll see you all. Take care. Laila Tov, everybody.
Violet,
Yes,